here we are. I've got some of the cleanup done. You can see behind me here, tomato plants all gone, and things are looking a little bit tidier. I'm going to be starting a next stage of my renovation. Is going to be removing the center support that I use for the tomatoes, and redoing it into an arch that I'll be able to put some plants underneath it early in the spring, and then later on, as the plants start growing up the arch, I'll be able to, hopefully by that time I'll be taking those plants underneath it, putting them outside, so they won't be getting too much shade as the vines grow up. I'm planning to put some pea vines, maybe some pole beans, tomatoes, watermelon, and muskmelon or cantaloupe. I'm going to make a section down the center. I'm going to leave an 18-inch aisle all the way around the outside. I'm going to have a 3.5 foot span in the middle. So what I want to do right now is I'm going to pull back the pea gravel that I've got spread on the ground, scrape it off to the side to expose the area, and then you'll see I've got a couple of 8-foot boards already cut, and I've got my 3.5 footers cut and ready to go along the side. I'm going to install these center support arches. I've got 4 of them pre-built, and I'll just take you down, show them to you a little more. You see I just put a little brace across at the top. It's all just simple screw together. I figured out all the sizes and angles ahead of time. The height, I've got it just tall enough that I can get underneath it. Hopefully a lot of the fruit will hang into the middle, and I will, once, I'm going to use wooden spikes that I'm going to pound into the ground, and there's some old spindles from a railing on a deck, and I will screw the arches to those spikes. Then I will, later on, I'm going to get some farm fencing, and I will attach fencing to the outside of the arches to act as my trellis. So a couple of things that I've done. One is I've kept the main support, main arches. They're going to be above the ground. That's why they're screwed up a little bit. Because they're just regular spruce, they're not pressure treated at all, and they will rot if I put them in the ground. So the old railing spindles there down in the ground, they were pressure treated. They're years old, but they'll last a while, and I can also pound them in a little bit if I need to adjust the level. I got it pretty good ahead of time. And just put a couple of screws in each one to hold it. I couldn't really go any higher because, as you can see, I'm up near the top right now, the greenhouse. I also wanted to make sure that I'll spin. I can walk underneath it all. Bring soil up. I'm going to mix some good compost and manure down the outer side, about a foot wide. I'm going to actually dig down quite a bit and mix some good soil in there, and that'll be where the crops are planted. And then down the center will be an aisle, but I'll put trays of, or pots of plants in there in the early spring. The one concern I have is, of course, down the sides is how much it's going to shade. But really, by the time the things are really grown up very high, we're getting lots of sun. That, you know, it's going to be May before I've got much height to anything in here, like the peas, that sort of thing, tomatoes that I'm going to grow up these supports. And so since the we'll have more sun, then that means hopefully it'll be getting lots of sun back in the edges here. And the sun, of course, is going to be coming more down this way in the summer. So hopefully, as it's more overhead, I'm going to get more sun down in underneath there. And I've got a plan for this wall that will be shared in a couple of months' time. So you can see that I've put some 1x2s down along the very peak and down the sides, one down each side, and that'll give it a fair bit of support. I mean, it's not that I can't wiggle it, but it's going to be plenty of support for what's going in there. We're not in the wind, of course, being in the greenhouse, so that should be great. We're going to put some plastic on it now, and that'll be our winter greenhouse in the greenhouse. We're going to do the covering today. Eventually it's going to have wire all the way down the side and over the top, but for now we're just covering it in plastic. I have this is just the standard plastic you'd use around your home. You'd buy for drop sheets for when you're painting. They generally, this is the medium grade. If you're doing for your insulation, the vapor barrier, then you would generally use the heavy stuff. But in here, there's no wind. It's only going to be up here for maybe 3 or 4 months at tops. So we don't need heavy plastic. So I've got a little bit lighter. We'll let a little more light penetrate, and a little cheaper, easier to work with, all that sort of stuff. So we're going to get started, and I'm going to basically put a sheet all the way over the top. It's going to go right over. It's 10 feet long. The structure is 8 feet long, so I'll have a little bit, about a foot extra on each end. But to start with, I want to actually close the ends in. I'm going to close the ends in. I'm going to make both sides roll up so I can access from either side, but the ends can stay permanently closed off. Let's get started. Got this covered with plastic for use as a greenhouse inside the greenhouse. You can see here at the side, it's got it propped open, and we will be planting plants all down the side here. These will be melons, tomatoes, some pole beans, some peas as well. Anything that gets a little bit of height to them. You'll be able to walk under this arch down the center where these two green plastic tubs are. Right now they're just full of water, and they are acting as a thermal mass, so the water absorbs the heat from the sunlight during the daytime and then releases it in the nighttime. I'm going to put a board over top of those and hang some grow lights, and in another 2 to 4 weeks we're going to be bringing plants out here and starting them. We'll probably put the ceramic heater on around that time to start giving a little more heat in the greenhouse. And I've made this so I can just take the plastic and tuck it down in the side for this winter time, and that'll hold it. And then we've got it completely covered. I can roll up this side as well, and that will hold a little more heat at nighttime during the late winter and early spring. And later on, once we don't need the plastic in here, once it's warmed up a bit, especially we get into maybe about April or so, that plastic was going to come off, and we will put the wire on to help support the climbing vegetables that are going to be planted in here. And we'll use that center section temporarily to hold plants that are waiting to go outside come the springtime. So we look forward to showing you a little more. Won't be too much happening here for at least 2 or 3 weeks. When we start planting, we'll show you the next stage of this.